Hello everybody. Thanks Horse for getting stuck on my entrance. My name is Caleb, and 100% of you do not know me because this is the first video I've uploaded that has to do with Rust. So my job does cross MIDI from time to time. I know MIDI pretty well. It is kind of fun to play with. So what I'm here to tell you how to do today is play back MIDI sequences into Rust so that you can kind of do what they did before with scripting on the guitar, except it's a lot more user-friendly and official now. Publicly known, what's the word I'm looking for? Well-known protocol. Much more known protocol than Python scripting. So, couple things I want to go over with MIDI before I start. Basically, MIDI has certain rules. MIDI cannot be shared between two programs. So if you have another program running already, let's say you already have Ableton or Reaper running, and you have your MIDI device connected to Ableton, and then you start Rust, Rust cannot receive your MIDI device's notes or control changes, which I'll get into in a second. Likewise, if you start Rust and you switch on your MIDI input and then you turn on another program, your new program will not receive the MIDI from your keyboard. Now, let me explain really quickly what channels, notes, and velocities are and control changes, because you're going to encounter that probably. Channels, there is 16 channels on one MIDI input. Each channel has 128 notes available that can be used, and each note has 128 different velocities. Velocity is how intense you hit the key. So if you hit the key really hard, it's going to come through with a max velocity of 127. If you hit the key really soft, it's going to come through with a minimum velocity of 1 or possibly even 0. With notes, you also have to know that there is note on and note off. Occasionally, there's a glitch going around in Rust where you'll just continue playing a note indefinitely until it catches. That's because it's not catching the note off for some reason. So if you're writing your MIDI tracks and this is happening a lot, you may just need to back off your note release. You might need to back that off just by a hair, so that there's a millisecond delay in between when one note goes off and the next note goes on, because that might be causing some problems. When Rust starts, the way they have Rust, it accepts MIDI from all inputs. So once you download Loopy in a couple minutes, it will accept MIDI input from Loopy and your keyboard and any other MIDI programs that you might have, or if you connect a launchpad on top of a keyboard, it should be able to detect that. But what you're going to run into eventually is overlapping notes. When it comes to live play, it's super simple. All you need to do is connect your keyboard by USB, or if it only outputs MIDI, then you'll need to get a USB to MIDI, and I'll provide a couple links for that at the end. But yeah, all you need to do is plug in your keyboard and then start up Rust. Know that your keyboard has to be plugged in and the device has to be installed on your computer before Rust gets booted up, otherwise Rust will not recognize it. And then note that Rust does have velocity sensitive keys. So let me stop my track real quick and show you what I mean by velocity sensitive keys. I'm using the wrong mouse. Stop. So I have a Korg Nano key connected. Note with live plays that there is some latency. I connected a Novation Impulse and it had more latency than a Korg Nano key, so I found that kind of interesting. So right now I'm hitting the keys normally. That's me hitting the key soft. That's me hitting the key hard. There's not much of a difference, I found, but when you get on other instruments like the trumpet, that's a soft hit. So you can hear that velocity does play on how loud the note is played. And note that on the trumpet, the initial volume remains the same, but the volume at which the note is held is what changes. Hopefully they'll change that in the future, because that'll kind of muck up some performances. So that's live play. When it comes to playback, your best options are you ready? Reaper. This is Country Roads queued up. Reaper is a fantastic digital audio workstation that I've been using for a long time for my lighting design for timecode playback and other MIDI translating. Loop B1 is a free virtual MIDI driver. And all it does is enable you to output MIDI notes to something that could be picked up in another program, because you can't just output notes directly from Ableton or Reaper. Scroll to the bottom. Loop B1 is what you want. Alright, give me 1 second. I gotta find this link again. Here it is. Loop B1, download your free copy. There you go. I already have it. But yeah, run that. I don't need to install it because I already have it installed. But run that, and that will install Loopy on your computer. You might need to restart, but you know it's working once you see that icon there. Purpose of this is we are going to find our MIDI track. It's somewhere in here. Let's play some Country Roads. I gotta stick to the oh. So yeah, you can play it in Windows Media Player to kind of see what it sounds like. And then another thing I want to show you before I forget. There's an app called MIDI Player. And it will expose, like Queen Bohemian Rhapsody is a good example of this. It will expose metadata in the MIDI track, and this will sometimes help you try to place. Well, I'll show you in a second. When you import a track, there's multiple different tracks. Sometimes there's 3 tracks, sometimes there's 16, sometimes there's 20 tracks. The metadata from MIDI Player will help you sort out what instrument is what. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Import Country Roads. Hey, not double click. Okay, that's because that was only that track. But I'll get to multi-track sequences in a second. Basically, you import your track, and then go to Options, Preferences, MIDI Devices, MIDI Outputs, Loop B, and you want to set that to Enable. Once you do that, hit this Route button, MIDI Hardware Output, set that to Loopy. Then all you have to do is, in Rust, that's weird. In Rust, you have to go to Options, Experimental, Switch MIDI, and put on. If you're using the new version of Reaper, which I discovered just after making this video, it works the same, except they move the route button from here to down here. Click that. Works the same as it did before. Send to Loopy. You're all good. So let's play it. This is Country Roads, and let me switch to guitar. Then speed up the playback. Let's play it again. Now that we're sped up. So yeah, that's how it's done in Reaper. And let me show you some multi-track real quick. Let's delete that one first. Import 13 channel MIDI. And so here's the good thing with Reaper, is that it can play all 13 tracks. Ableton, on the other hand, you have to use the trial version if it has more than 8 tracks. Quick note with Ableton, if you purchase a MIDI device of pretty much any kind, Novation, Korg, just go to Guitar Center and ask which MIDI devices come with a Live 9 Lite, or it's Live 10 now, I think, license. Because you can get a Lite license while buying a MIDI device, and it kind of saves you money. So yeah, here is Ableton. Basically, you have to import your tracks, and if you're doing the trial, if your sequence has more than 8 tracks and you have a Lite license, what you're going to need to do is import it into the trial version, activate that trial version, and then delete 8 tracks, or delete as many tracks gives you 8 tracks left, and then save that and reopen in your licensed version, in your Lite version. So with Ableton, all you have to do is, let's start new. All you have to do is drag and drop as well, and then kind of like Reaper, go to Preferences, MIDI, and then just check Loop B here as an output. I had an input nano key, but as you can see, it's lit up red because it sees that Rust has my nano key. And Rust is having more fun with my nano key than Ableton would. You need. Once you import your MIDI track, you have to send MIDI to Loop B. And then you may want to solo your track, and you do have to select it in order to have it play anything. I forget what this was. It's certainly not Moonlight Sonata. Wow, this is faster than I remember. It's way faster, okay. I do not recognize this problem. And I've played Moonlight Sonata off of Ableton before, I think. What it's supposed to sound like is this. Quick thing I wanted to show you with Reaper. Solo. So, if you get a bunch of tracks like this, and you set all of their outputs to Loop B for some reason, which you shouldn't. But if you need to solo a track and just play that, that's how it's done. If you want to edit your MIDI track, double click it in Reaper and you'll get to edit it. You can zoom in using the scroll wheel, and then you can make these keys bigger on the left here. So you hear it max out at the top there. So there it maxes out as well. So maybe take this whole bar. Can't shift it much more down. 5 down? 5 works, barely. Let's see what that sounds like. It'll probably sound a little bit off key. So, for a performance it works. It's certainly better than capping out all the notes and playing the highest note 14 times over. So that's how that method is done. Once you are ready to save your, or if you want to share your MIDI file, you basically, and this is same for Reaper too. I can almost do these in parallel. Select the track, export MIDI clip, and then on Ableton it all by default exports only what's selected, and then you're going to save that and it'll say exported. On Reaper though, select the track, export project MIDI. You're going to need to hit this box, either say all MIDI tracks or selected tracks only. And then hit OK, and it will export that. I won't export it because I don't want a bunch of exports laying around my folders. That is it. I'm going to spend the last 5 minutes wandering around playing Country Roads and talking a little bit more about MIDI, if you guys care. Or what do you guys want to hear? Bohemian Rhapsody? You can't walk around and play Bohemian Rhapsody. So, Bohm MIDI translator, what I was telling you guys about. Country Roads is playing entirely too slow. One thing you're going to have to do if you guys are playing together, find a way to synchronize everybody. So I'll show you what I had going yesterday in my MIDI studio. This was my MIDI studio. I threw 10,000 stone in it at night before I logged off and came back to see this. So apparently it consumed more than 10,000 stone per night. But I had rooms to record in. I started rebuilding it and then I decided what was important. But this was what I built to synchronize everybody. Unfortunately, all my electronics were on that wall right there, which is now destroyed. But basically, you would flip that switch, and a 1-second timer would count down and start looping, and turn on the first light, and then the second light, and then the third light, and the fourth light. This was my preferred way for synchronizing because the way I heard about previously on Discord was doing it on Discord. Problem then is you're the host, so your go and your client's goes or host. I am butchering my words today, but you guys get what I'm saying. The guy on the other end is receiving your go a little bit later than you're saying it. By doing this, you guys can count down 3, 2, 1, go, and what everybody's seeing is on the server end. So any latencies or lag have already been accounted for, and you guys are seeing the result of the lag. So you guys are saying lag 1, lag 2, lag 3, go. And you guys are all playing on the same key. I will provide another tutorial on how to build that. But that wraps up everything for today. Thank you for watching. I hope to see lots of people out making beautiful tracks. And I honestly hope this encourages a lot of people to start composing their own music, because I know it started to influence me. So, that is all for now. Goodbye, you all.